what are you expecting for investments in AI for HR over the next year? And 62% are expecting an increase. That is a huge number. And so the question that's in front of us is, what are we going to do about it?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Break the Wheel podcast with Kyle Lagunas here, our guest. Woo, holla, holla, Kyle. Kyle, so good to see you and have you on the show. So Kyle is the head of transformation and a principal analyst at Aptitude Research and also host of your own podcast, Transformation Realness, which I love.
It's actually illustrious host of Transformation Realness and the head of strategy at Aptitude. But we're going to do this live, you know?
Okay, well, let's dive in. We're going to start with a segment we call Uncork and Unwind. So if you're listening to this during your day job, don't tell people that you're drinking. But otherwise, you can uncork and unwind with me. This is my wine. Wink, wink. Is it really wine or not? I'll let you all decide. Kyle knows, but I won't say anything. But this wine today is from France. So speaking of which, France has a 35-hour work week. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, 35 hours is still a lot. I don't understand like this glorification of hustle culture. People working 60 hours a week, that's 12 hours a day, Monday through Friday. Or that's time on Saturday or Sunday. Like, I know.
Who made it a badge of honor, right? Like, why are people proud that they're working crazy hours? I remember when I was at in my early days, Google, like 2006, 2007, I woke up in the middle of the night, like speaking tongues because I was so overworked at the time. And like, I said to myself, I'm going to live the rest of my life as if I were retired and have the job that I would want to have if I were retired. And I would tell people like, oh yeah, and I'm doing everything that I can to work 40 hours a week. And like, they would like judge me. Like somehow that was like not okay. And
40 is still a significant amount of time. That's still 8 hours every single day, right? I mean, look, I've worked really hard to have the opportunity to have the job that I have now. So I will say that there may be an element of either privilege or accomplishment, or maybe a little bit of both, that gives somebody the option to say, no, I'm not going to work that much. But I've had a lot of different jobs, you know, from working in customer service for an airline to being a market researcher.
You must have gotten pooed on a lot in that role, you know, I'm just guessing, by the way.
But like, I don't know, like there's never been a place where I felt like there was, like I couldn't get done what I needed to in 40 hours. Or that I should normalize working to the bone, you know? It's like one or the other. Even if it was an environment where there was just too much shit going on, I would still be like, well, gotta prioritize because I'm only working 40 hours this week, you know? It's just, yeah.
It's crazy. And, you know, so many of us, especially because a lot of us have gone through rifts recently, a lot of us are understaffed. We're all like the do more with less. That's like a thing now for everybody. Do more with less, like get creative, you know, work 2 other people's jobs instead of like the one that you were used to and still like put a smile on your face. It's insane. Which brings us to HR Newsflash. So the Supreme Court is beginning their next term. And I know that AI is something that we're thinking about as it relates to the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts on what's going on there and what's going on with AI?
Well, first of all, this Supreme Court is illegitimate.
True.
And radicalized. But we're not here to talk politics today. No, truly, I think that we need guidance. I mean, if we look at the state of AI in HR, we're gridlocked there because there is resistance to adoption that is largely connected to a lack of understanding of the risks associated with these use cases. We don't know how to ensure compliance with federal regulations when we don't have clear guidance for federally regulated uses of AI. You talk to the EEOC and they'll say the laws are still the same. You can't discriminate against these protected classes, and this is what discrimination looks like. But still, I think that the federal government, at least the United States, has left a lot of the best practice to come out of the private sector. And it's kind of like a game of cat and mouse. And the only people who are losing is HR.
Totally. It's the wild, wild west. And even knowing what AI you can and can't use, or what AI, should or shouldn't. I mean, obviously bias is a huge part of the conversation. And at the same time, if you pass in to ChatGPT, for example, like, here is this performance feedback. Can you actually reduce the bias in my language? It can actually succeed at that task. Yeah. And so, it gets obviously, if misused, or you kind of ignore the fact that all the data that populates AI is powered by people and people are biased, like, you can't ignore that. But you can actually use it on the other side to help reduce bias if you give attention to that.
I think so too. I mean, look, the boogie bias man. I'm sorry, the bias boogeyman.
Yeah,
the bias boogeyman is. We're gonna have to move past it. I mean, if you look at what these technologies do, they really do model off of existing and past behaviors. And you should be auditing, if we're talking about hiring practices as an example, you should be auditing your hiring practices to understand, how are we making these decisions? Are we being as objective as possible? Are we prioritizing and referencing the right information to make the best decisions? And if not, we need to make sure we have it. I think that's kind of like the catch-22. It's not that people are afraid of the AI being biased. It is that they are, I think, more afraid of actually their current processes having bias and it modeling off of those. And, and it being auditable and
1,000%.
Right. And so it's not like, oh, the AI's bias. It's like, well, it's there. I mean, and don't get me wrong. I think looking at matching and scoring algorithms as an example, you do need to understand how these algorithms are built and what data points they look for, because there are examples that we've seen in major offerings in the market today where these tools are using things that they're trying to infer things like teamwork and communication skills and drive, these really ambiguous concepts. And they're looking at things like, did they play team sports? Were they part of a sorority or a fraternity? And the sororities and fraternities, by the way, historically have not been very friendly to people of diverse backgrounds, right? And so it's just like, the AI itself can model bias, and it can introduce bias because it's trying to give you the information it thinks you need. But that's why I actually think that's a stronger argument to utilize AI in HR, because we're gonna have to optimize for these things. We have to solve for these problems anyway, right? Let's use technology.
Absolutely. And probably it's good to have folks on your team that are educated and trained and knowledgeable, not only on things like cognitive bias and all of the various things that I think we in HR know well, but in addition, representation and experience from their own personal backgrounds that share a little bit of that diversity of perspective that you need to be able to even see some of the biased stuff that's happening in front of you that, So reality check, AI in HR. I mean, we already kind of discussed some of this, but do you have any other juicy tidbits in terms of your own experience? I know that you've been studying this.
I hope you're thirsty. There's a lot of juice. Check. Yeah. So we actually just finished.
Squeeze the juice.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, and I don't expect everybody to, because Aptitude's a boutique research firm where we focus on HR transformation, talent technologies. And I just finished this study of the adoption of AI in HR. And we have found that there's been a significant step back in the HR leadership about their approach to AI. And I think it's connected to the rapid advancement of new AI capabilities, like generative AI as an example. Just going to have people taking pause, right? So the interesting thing here, though, is it is like, because we ask, like, why, what are the obstacles to adoption? And although like concerns with bias is high up there, the number one reason why we are seeing this slow in adoption are gaps in HR's understanding of AI and automation. So it's not necessarily that they're like, oh, no, we don't want bias, although that is like one of the top three. The number one by a significant margin is actually just gaps in understanding. The thing that's interesting to me there, David, is we also see I asked, what are you expecting for investments in AI for HR over the next year? And 62% are expecting an increase. That is a huge number, right? 62% expecting an increase in investment. And so the question that's in front of us is, what are we going to do about it? If we are
Yeah.
recognizing that the biggest obstacle to adoption is a gap in understanding, but we also see in a year like this year where we've had to cut and save in a lot of different places, we are seeing a huge increase in investment in this specific area. We're going to have to figure some stuff out, right? We're going to actually have to lean into our ignorance, which HR I don't think is always very good at.
Oh
We are
man.
going to have to try to really get an understanding of what these capabilities are and how they work. You had said earlier, like maybe we need to have like a person in HR who can help us understand this. Like, well, yeah, we do need subject matter experts, deep subject matter experts in different areas like operations and process and tech. I think that like AI literacy is a new core competency for HR. So it can't be
Mm.
one person or one team that understands these things. The entire rank and file of the HR organization has to at least be AI literate. What do you think?
I love that. AI literacy, like that term, that concept is not a concept that I've heard much of at all. And yet it's obvious in retrospect that it's something that we should be talking about. It's something that we should be talking with our teams about. It's something that we should be screening for when we're hiring new candidates who are coming to join a team. If we're adopting, 60% of us are going to be adopting new HR technologies powered by AI. My gosh, if we don't have that HR literacy, I imagine that could be a
Well,
dangerous
here's what
weapon to
happens,
play.
right? You ask people like, "What are you trying to accomplish with AI over the next year?" And they'll say something like improving employee experience, which because that sounds nice, it's a catch-all. There's a lot of stuff there. But then when you ask them, for those who actually did invest in those areas over the last year, which we did ask this, there was something like 6% that said that they actually had a high impact in employee experience as a result of their AI for HR programs. And so it's like,
Hmm.
if you don't know exactly what you can do and how you're going to do it, you're not going to actually have an impact. You're just going to spend that budget that you've been given, which guess what? It comes up on the chopping block whenever we have another downturn. So,
My
right?
gosh.
It's like we never have the resources that we need in HR and talent. We are always overburdened, right? But then here we have an example to significantly upgrade our operating capacity. And I don't know if we're going to make the most of this opportunity. Wow. Was that
Wow. Well, I
hot
hope.
news off the juicy?
Oh no, that's very hot news. And all I can say is I hope that more organizations are willing to take a little bit of the risk to be able to adopt some of this AI technology in a way that can be helpful to them. I know for us at Confirm, like we automate the busy work of engagement survey summarization and managers who've written their whole performance feedback being able to summarize what they say at the end. Like those are the kinds of busy work that we're excited to help automate. And I think a lot of folks, honestly, right now will benefit a lot just by having AI automate a lot of that busy work, the summarization and stuff like that. And as long as they're mentioning in the prompt, like address bias, surface bias, something related to bias, like, that won't be
Well,
hard to
to
find.
that point, I'm it's part of this research that we're doing. I'm recommending that we evaluate AI capabilities, AI use cases differently than we've evaluated HR tech in the past. Whereas if I came to you and I said, David, can Confirm help me and automate and introduce AI into my performance management process? You would say yes, right? Okay, but I already assume that that is like the answer. The question I need to
Right.
ask is how, in what
Right.
ways? And so we're recommending that you evaluate use cases on three different factors. How risky is it? What risk is associated with this use case? How complex is this use case in terms of technologically, but also like conceptually, how complex is this going to
Mhm.
be? And then how impactful is it? So it's like I'm not going to ask you, can you introduce AI and automation into my employee performance process? I'm going to say, can you create a summary of my manager's one-on-ones with their employees throughout the year?
Right.
And help, and can you make it easier for them to put together a summary report for performance. And by the way, I haven't demoed Confirm yet, so I have no idea how it works.
Oh, no. You're talking up my alley.
Okay.
Don't you worry,
But I mean, it's like, it's not just going through a traditional RFP and saying, can you support employee performance reviews? The answer is yes.
Right.
But what you can build in product and what I can actually deliver in my organization is different, right?
Absolutely. I love it. Well, and speaking, you clearly understand a lot in HR and AI. And so that lets us get a nice smooth transition to this next segment called People Misunderstand. So, Kyle, what do people misunderstand about your job?
Well, I think a lot of people look at analysts in the space as just fancy influencers. And I will say, like, just being very honest with myself, there is an element of influencer marketing to what we do. But the reason why we have influence in the market is because we spend our day jobs studying innovation cycles, speaking with practitioners and leaders in HR and technology, looking at the gaps in adoption and innovation across the vendor ecosystem and the day-to-day of HR. We actually are doing qualitative and quantitative research about what's really going on in the space. And so we're not just coming out with like strong opinions loosely held. It is informed perspectives and carefully crafted understanding of the market. We're not just soothsayers. We're not just weathermen or women, but
Or they're
not just data
non-binary
scientists either. There really is,
Yeah.
because I don't know what you went to school for. I was originally going to school
Bunch of
for
things.
creative writing and philosophy. I've got very different skill set. This is an opportunity for me to lean into research that I love and, conversations that I also really value, and kind of operating at the intersection of all the above.
I love that. Well, discovering that you have creative in your backgrounds is another thing that we share, like the science plus the creative. I studied computer science. I studied human computer interaction, but I also studied voice performance. I studied opera singing.
Oh my God, really?
So, yeah, I have a degree in opera from Carnegie Mellon, along with CS and everything else. It's very random. So you can write the content of an opera or musical, and I could sing it for you.
I'm really into that. Let's collab.
I love it. Oh, we're already.
I don't know if the world is ready. Honestly, the world's not ready.
Oh no, I'm not even ready for this conversation right now. Can you tell? Okay, so this brings us to our next segment called "Break the Wheel" or "Break a Heel." So I am going to give you 5 things on this particular category, which the category today is uses of AI, because we have an AI theme today. AI is hot, so uses of AI, and you're going to tell me. Break the wheel, as in this is innovative, we are breaking out of the cycle of awfulness, or break a heel, which, girl, you know what that means. So, number 1, uses of AI, automating busy work.
Break the wheel, baby. I mean, honestly,
Excellent.
Just like operating capacity is our biggest Achilles heel in HR and talent. So let's
doing more with less.
Free people up.
Amen. Creating engagement survey questions.
There's a little nuance here, but I think it breaks the wheel, especially because
Girl, you got to pick one.
No, I'm saying break the wheel.
Breaks the wheel.
But I think it just it's good to remove any bias out of the questions themselves. HR is not very good at creating quantitative research questions, so I think break the wheel.
All right. Giving as in it's giving. Performance feedback.
Oh, no. Break a heel. No. Absolutely not. No Gen AI has the context to understand performance, really. So, new.
Amen. I agree with you there. We'll never do that in our product. All right. Summarizing performance review content.
Well, now that breaks the wheel. That is literally the most obvious use case for Gen AI in performance. I mean, I don't know how many direct reports you've had in at the most, but as soon as you get past 3, trying to put together meaningful feedback for somebody and summarizing every conversation you've had throughout the last 12 months, no way.
So, we actually have this very interesting stat. I'm going to truth bomb y'all. So we have the data on how long people spend on their self-reflection and performance reviews versus how long managers spend on it.
Oh.
The average person spends anywhere from, I know, you all know where this is going. The average person spends about 15 to 30 minutes on their self-reflection, putting everything together, their accomplishments, yada, yada, yada. And most platforms, then it just disappears and you never see that stuff again. Guess how long the average manager spends reading those summaries? Just guess.
Just reading?
Yeah.
I would say 2 minutes.
7.5 seconds.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, I mean, think about when you do your resume reviews, okay? When you're trying to hire, right? You're going boom, 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 boom. And a lot of it's because you're like, all right, I know this, I know this, I know this. You're skimming. That's just that's the reality of the data that we see from the just the session logs that we have. So yeah,
I think we have to contextualize that information. I mean, as a content creator, you know, I write a lot of research. It takes a lot longer to create and to write because you're curating your thoughts, articulating your thoughts, than it does to consume content, right? It's like, how long does it take to write a book versus read a book? But still, 7 seconds, that's so sad. That's like not how long it takes to read, you know?
I know. It is sad.
But hey, my heart also goes out to the managers. A lot falls on these people to like,
totally.
You know, they really are the backbone of most high-performing companies.
Absolutely. Okay, last one. Break the wheel or break a heel. Uses of AI reducing bias.
I think break the wheel. For the reason we talked about before. I mean, if you can't actually get any sort of data around like potential adversity impact of your current processes, you can't calibrate. You have to audit your current process, you know, and understand. And I think it's just like being ready to just rip that Band-Aid off, because I guarantee you it's probably not as bad as you think. Like, it's probably not as bad.
Totally.
Probably.
I guess every organization is different, but hoping the best for yours.
Yeah, right.
Listening. So there are a lot of wheel breakers in there, which brings us to a wheel breaker of the week.
Ooh.
So this week, our wheel breaker is KPMG, who offered video game training to some employees. And from that video game training, and I'm a big gamer myself, okay, I'm a nerd. They brought in 16% more clients and 36% more in revenue generating fees. What are your thoughts on that, Kyle?
So I haven't seen the specific use case, so I don't know what was involved in the training. Gamified HR has been a thing since like 2011, I want to say. I wonder if it's just like the effort behind this to try and make this more interesting and engaging was enough for people to be like, yeah, sure, I'll tune into this. I can have some fun with this. I mean, I haven't seen, like, David, I mean, I play a lot of video games too. I have not seen in the corporate environment any game that I was like, wow, you know, but it's more like, well, it's better than just waiting for me to click next on this like lesson, video lesson, to actually interact with something. So yeah.
You know, I was actually in gaming for a while when I was a kid, and I wanted to do computer science because I was like, I love video games. I want to make them myself, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And so we had this amazing person. Her name's Amy Jo Kim. She does fantastic work in gamification. And one of the first things I learned from working with her as we were trying to gamify our experience in a non-game product was, you know, she actually doesn't like the term gamification, or at least she didn't at the time. But what she preferred was systems for sustained engagement. And ultimately, really, right? That's what you're trying to build when you gamify something. So I love seeing more of that in the workplace. Obviously, like white hat version, not black hat version, because you know people can do all sorts of crazy stuff. But fascinating.
I mean, that's like the outcome that you're going for, right? I really like it.
Exactly. Awesome. Okay. Next segment. This one's called Wisdom on the Rocks. I don't know why it's called on the rocks because I'm not going to put ice in my. Well, maybe it'll be sangria time next time. Anyway, Wisdom on the Rocks. Can you share with us a key piece of HR wisdom or a truth bomb focusing on a solution rather than the problem, maybe, or not?
Yeah, let me think here. So, Wisdom on the Rocks. I think that it's like closing that knowledge gap. Maybe we have already covered this, but I think that we have this incredible opportunity in front of us with this huge investment coming in AI for HR. Another counterpoint So I said 62% increase, anticipated increase from HR leaders for AI and HR. I also asked this question about how supportive are executive leadership in your organization for AI and HR. And it was almost the same number. 61% said that their executives are very supportive of AI and HR. So I think that if we look at the biggest gap here is that knowledge gap. It really is. We got to close it. If I see
It sounds
two
like
like opposing trends, it's like
yeah,
innovation cycles in AI are absolutely out of
yeah,
control. They're getting tighter and tighter, and the impact of these
totally.
innovation cycles is getting bigger and bigger. And resistance from HR is remain steady. It's not like they're anti. It's just that they don't know, and they're leaning kind of into their traditional role. It's not going to work. There's
Totally. We need to like embrace our internal Brene Brown and like dare greatly and be vulnerable and try this new thing and like be willing to take risks. I mean, obviously easier said than done, right? The whole nobody gets fired for using IBM or whatever. It's like, sure, but oh my gosh, if we're trying to do more with less and we're really this scared or this hands off with AI, we're going to fall behind.
Yeah, I mean, just probing at it, I think that there might be a couple of things. Just the bandwidth problem already. Like we've had a really hellacious 5 years. Because remember, actually, burnout was at a record high going into the COVID pandemic. And then we had this first, like 2 months of COVID where we thought maybe the world was going to collapse. And we just ended up watching Tiger King and making banana bread.
By the way, I love that you call it the COVID.
Well, the COVID pandemic, I said, the COVIDia.
I kind of want to call it the COVID. Yeah.
But really, I mean, it's been a really shitty several years for HR and talent practitioners and leaders. And guess what? Who was on the chopping block first this year? TA. And we busted our asses, man. We worked so hard over the last 2 years, especially, and we got cut, right? And so, like, maybe there's burnout, maybe there's change fatigue, maybe there's just like, I'm going to ground, I'm going to just stay head down and get my job done. Like, the quiet quitting, I think. The reason why you see so much resentment for the concept in the world, in our sphere, is because HR is like, oh, really? You want to quiet quit? I didn't have that option,
Exactly.
So now they're like, oh, and now you're going to bring in AI and automate my job? It's like, well,
I know.
It's a misconception.
A lot of those folks, totally. A lot of the folks in TA were these quiet contributors, right? Who are like busting their butts, getting a lot of important work done, and then all of a sudden, like, job evaporates. It's so dysfunctional. I'm gonna take a little bit of a lighter-hearted note with this segment, which is intended to entertain you all with a little bit of personal humiliation, called "What Should I Have Done?" So this segment, I'm going to share a brief, embarrassing story about something I did at work, and you're going to tell me what you think I should have done.
I'm so nervous about this one.
Don't worry. All right. So this was at my last job, doctor.com. I was CTO there, but they used to call me chief therapy officer for a reason. I've had 20 years of therapy, whatever. So sometimes I gave talks there. Sometimes, executives give talks on things that they're passionate about, whatever. And I like to talk about some of the like business meets humanity kind of intersections about like being vulnerable at work. A lot of the Brene Brown stuff was like really hot at the time, and it still is in my book.
Yeah.
But and right.
Yeah. Anyway.
There you go. And so, and I, this I do not call vulnerability. This is just I call being dumb. But, they were located in New York. I was in California. I'd come visit the office. I want to like connect with people. And so, it was the one chip challenge time. You familiar with the one chip challenge?
No.
Okay. So it's basically like the hottest chip. It's like a single like Dorito, basically, that's like sealed.
Now you're speaking my language.
Right? But it's like so hot, it's like whatever, a billion, quadrillion, whatever Scoville units. It's like so insanely hot that, it's like you should sign a waiver kind of hot. And so somebody had this one chip challenge, and like they knew I'm from New Mexico originally. And like apparently when I was a kid, I used to just like gobble like spicy jalapenos when I was like 2, and people would stare at me, whatever. And I love spicy food. I'm on the spectrum, which apparently maybe has something to do with that too. Who knows? Anyway, so I was like, oh, I can do this one chip challenge. And so I took the chip and I just ate it. And they like all stared at me like crazy because I guess you're not supposed to eat the whole thing. You're just supposed to like take a little tiny bite. And then later on, I was going to give this talk about self-care and taking care of yourself, right? So I have this one chip. I start feeling really awful. I'm then going into give this talk in front of like 40 employees about how to handle self-care at the workplace, etc. And then I start to feel this like eruptive, painful, awful feeling as I'm giving this talk on self-care and taking care of yourself. And I'm starting to like feel like, oh my God, I am not going to like survive this. I was like, it was just a horrible mess. And so in the moment, I was like, what do I do? I didn't know if I was going to like go to the hospital or what. And I said, since this is a self-care talk, I'm going to be vulnerable and share. I did the one chip challenge earlier and I am having some real stomach issues. And so I'm going to need to pause this talk to go to the restroom. And I ran to the restroom, not to use it, but to lay on the floor. And like, I took like my shirt and I pulled it up and I laid on the floor, on the cold floor, just to like numb the painful burning in my stomach.
Oh my God.
And stayed there for about 10 minutes. And then I went back and I finished the talk. So that's the story. Kyle, what should I have done?
I think you should have just powered through, honestly. You looked
That's fair.
Unprofessional.
It was.
Wrong kind of vulnerability, my friend. Wrong kind of vulnerability.
If you had that one chip, would you have powered through? You think you could have powered through that?
No, absolutely not. But I also don't do crazy dumb shit at work, you know?
That's fair.
I do silly stuff, but not, no. So I have my two favorite Greek proverbs is know thyself and nothing too much. And, I think that you overestimated yourself. And I think that you took too much. Yeah.
I like to say everything in moderation, which is very similar, except I like to say everything in moderation, including moderation itself. Sometimes.
Fine. It was just one chip.
Exactly.
I can house an entire bag of Doritos, my friend, so.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's a fascinating book called The Dorito Effect that explains why. It's crazy science, just like side plug. Okay, moving on. New segment, horror story of the week. So we're going to tell a real life horror story, or rather, Kyle, you're going to share your real life horror story of the week.
Okay, so I was at a major industry event last week, and two of my girlfriends were calling it a night, and they were having a little chit chat in the elevator lobby at the official hotel for this event. And so these ladies are, very cute, like very put together, very professional, both in their late 30s, early 40s, and very professional, right? And they were going to bed before me, so they were definitely on their best behavior. And while they were waiting for their elevator, a gentleman in his late 50s, early 60s, clearly inebriated, and asked, "How is your evening going?" And they said, "Oh, it was good. We're calling it a night." He's like, "Well, mine could be a lot better." And they're like, "How?" They're like, "Okay." And he's like, "If one or both of you would join me."
Oh, no. Oh, that's so awful. Oh.
And the reason why I'm telling this story is not just to make everybody's skin crawl, but because we are in the heart of conference season and we need to be looking out for each other.
Absolutely.
Isn't that absolutely
OMG.
Appalling? Imagine if he happened to be staying on the same floor as one of them and they had to walk out with, do they both get out together then and make sure it was just like completely unacceptable. And I think that we just need to be diligent and make sure that whether we are in San Francisco or Las Vegas or Paris or New York City or anywhere, Orlando, it doesn't matter, that we're looking out for our people. And it's not just like looking out for the ladies, which I always am. It's looking out for each other, right? You don't need to have that extra drink because you're literally about to fall down, or like, whatever. You should not be walking into that expo hall because you looked high as a kite, like
Oh my
it's just,
gosh.
let's watch out for each other because it's dangerous out there.
I'm really glad that you bring this topic up, Kyle, because it's really awkward and uncomfortable sometimes to talk about like conference life. But the reality is, like, all of us have like that personal networker that wants to impress people, that wants to be friendly, that sometimes
Yeah.
might lead us to drink too much or spend too much time out, or, even sometimes go beyond the boundaries that we set for ourselves ahead of time. And having support there, having people go, hey, you shared that boundary earlier, like, let me help you stay honest with yourself, like, so important.
It really is. And I think that you spelled it out so well there too. It's like, we're trying to be friendly, we're trying to network, we're at these events in order to engage, right? And it's just, and it's not business. I don't even know if that gentleman was a part of the convention that we were at, right? It's just, you
Wild.
really never know.
Wild. Well, moving on, because oh my gosh, that's upsetting and crazy, and yet I can see why it would happen. We're going to go to a segment called Wobbly Wheel of the Week. So the Wobbly Wheel of the Week, in a leaked memo, Shopify CEO Toby Lütke, with an umlaut, put limits on employees having side hustles, saying Shopify requires unshared attention. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay. It comes back to, we said this at the beginning when we were talking about the work week. Enough with the hustle. Okay. That's one half of it. Because I'm not just coming for the people who have hustles. The other half is, hey, CEO, do you know if you're paying people enough? Do you know if they're just trying to overextend themselves? Or are they having to take on these hustles to make rent or to pay for their mortgage, which rates are absolutely out of control, or, or whatever it is? We have never had a wage gap this high since I think like the 20s, right?
Yeah.
And so have a little bit of self-awareness, check your fucking privilege, sorry. But then also make sure that this message has to be taking care of people, not just condemning them for doing what they need to get ahead.
Absolutely. Like, it's, why are we penalizing our employees for needing to make ends meet and have a side hustle to be able to do that if they have to, That's wild. Well, new segment, Water Cooler Whispers. So this is drawing a little bit from like word on the street. If you haven't already been able to tell, I am pulling a little bit of inspiration from Bravo, Watch What Happens Live. So some anonymous gathering, insights, confessions, or stories. Is there any water cooler whisper that you want to share today? I mean, I hear that there's a season 2 of something happening.
I'm like, wait, what do we have planned for this? Well, I did hear that the premier ultimate show in HR tech and the world of work, it's a podcast called Transformation Realness, has recently announced its second season to be launching in early November, which is salacious, honey. It is juicy, it is dramatic, and it is full of heart. So yes,
absolutely. I saw the your YouTube clip of the season 2 preview video, and all I can say is you got to watch till the end because it's absolutely hilarious, and you clearly have like real quality people doing your production, because I can only aspire to
talented
that.
people attract talented friends. It's just how it goes.
Amen. All right, we got a couple more segments here. First one, HR Speak Funny. So we are going to pick a term that we've heard a lot of us use, and we're going to make fun of it a little bit. So this one is Boomerang Employee.
I don't know why this is funny to you. It's very functional. Like, it's a literal...
I think it's hilarious. It's like, I'm going to take the employee and just like throw them across and just like wait for them to like fly back to me,
Like, who's throwing...
yeah, like, where did it come from? It's like we were all like down under and being like, let's just throw our employees away and watch. I mean, to be fair, Boomerang is actually kind of a good description, because that's usually what happens. People just throw their employees out and then they expect them to come back. And boomerangs, just like some people, have no choice because maybe the pay was good, even though they got treated like poo, and so they end up having to come back because there's no choice. So maybe Boomerang,
there's a couple of different things to it. I mean, like, if you look in, it depends on your job, right? Sometimes it is like you're just checking people out the window because you don't know how to keep them like satisfied and engaged. But in like in sales and in consulting and, some professional services, it actually, you do have people that come in at like as an inside salesperson, and they just, all they need to do is grind, grind, grind to get through that queue and build up some success and get, some experience. And then they're going to hit a ceiling with you because where they came in. So they're going to go out to the partner ecosystem. Dell did this in a great way. And then they go out into your partner ecosystem, and then they come back after 3 years because they've got, regional sales experience, or, they've been managing a team of inside salespeople, So it could be that intentional. I think it wasn't necessarily intentional to begin with, but HR leaders in some of these organizations, they lean into these trends and they say, well, what's going on? Why do people keep leaving at this period? Oh, because they need to leave to go and get the experience or the raise that they want, and then they could come back in, right? And they're worth paying. We know we can pay them that much now because they've gone and proven that out somewhere else. So I like Boomerang a lot, whether it is chucking people out the window or sending them off to get experience and, pay increases, whatever it is. I think that it makes sense.
You remind me of that research that people who end up moving jobs every 2 years end up getting paid way more because, it seems like the only way these days to get paid more is to have to leave and then come back. So you throw out the boomerang, maybe it's a wooden boomerang when it comes out, and it's a bling bling boomerang when it comes back.
Who knows?
All right, final segment. This one's called Decline to Comment. And yes, I am grabbing this one. It has a different name with Andy Cohen, but we're going to ask you 3 questions, the royal we. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and you can only decline to comment to one of them.
Okay.
And I'm going to go in order. So if you decline the first one or the second one, you're going to have to answer the next one. Okay. So, number 1, what was your most challenging job and why?
This one's easy, and I will answer it. My work at General Motors, being a part of a talent transformation or project in talent acquisition, it was so challenging. Because transformation is never easy anywhere, but just because there was so much work to be done, not just at the project level, but people management level, partnership with different functions within and beyond HR. It was just a beast. So that one is absolutely the most challenging, and I have so much respect for my practitioner friends as a result.
Okay. Number 2, who was your most disappointing boss and why?
Girl. I thought I was going to decline this one, but I'm going to answer this one. So my very first job covering the HR technology space, I was actually a blogger at a company called Software Advice. And my manager was, he led like all the content marketing team. And they had a method for the program. Like every program, I covered HR, someone covered supply chain, somebody covered construction. They wanted the same methods to play out in every single industry. And he would be visibly shaking. He was so angry with me sometimes because I would fight him tooth and nail saying, HR's different. And it was relationship driven, and it was like being a deep expert and not just churning out blogs all the time. And he fought me, and I ended up getting fired. And which I laughed all the way home because I felt good about it. But it was from that job that my friend John Sumser said, you know what, Kyle? You have an opportunity now. You can stay in marketing and content, or you could pursue this as an analyst and keep going deeper and building more relationships. And guess what I chose? Analyst.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, clearly you made the right choice.
Yeah.
Love it.
And so did my old manager. Right. I was not right for them. It's fine.
There you go. Sometimes, these things are meant to be, right? One door closes, etc.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. Which company have you worked with who you think is most heading in the wrong direction?
Decline to comment, honey. No. We are friends. We are friends with everyone around here. That's what keeps the lights on.
There you go. Good call. Very, very strategically placed declination. So there you go. All right. Well, with that, we are at the end of our Break the Wheel podcast. I want to say number 1, woo woo. Yes, cheers. I want to say cheers to change. You know, dozens of countries, including Ireland, Spain, and the UK, have tested a 4-day work week with overwhelmingly positive results. Businesses that participated in a 6-month trial in the UK, which ended in December of this last year, said switching to a 4-day work week improved productivity, morale, and team culture. So with that, I say cheers to change. Cheers to you, Kyle Lagunas. You are fantastic. Love your bubbly, amazing personality, as well as, like, oh my gosh, all of the knowledge that you have on AI and everything else. Thank you so much for participating, and thanks for coming. Yeah.
I love it. Thanks for inviting me. And if anybody wants to connect, please find me on LinkedIn. I'm really geeky for this stuff. I actually love it. And I hope to see you guys out on the road. David, I will see you next week in Las Vegas.
Yes, see you in Las Vegas. Check out Kyle on Transformation Realness Season 2, popping up very, very soon. I'm absolutely going to check it out. Watch the YouTube video online. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have an awesome rest of your week. Bye-bye.